Hey everybody, Steve here. Today we're going to talk about how to solder two wires together. Basically the most common thing people want to learn when it comes to soldering. So, quick and easy, I'm going to show you the method I like to use. A lot of people may disagree with the method because there's so many different ways to do it. Twisting wires together, bird caging them, and then kind of like meshing them. But I really think that no matter which way you do, I mean, there are surely wrong ways out there, but no matter which way you do, people are going to disagree with it. So, the way I like to do it is I like to solder the wires just kind of sitting parallel to each other like that. And for me so far, it's done just fine. I haven't had any issues. I think the wire is much more likely to break right where the solder ends as opposed to on the solder joint. So let's get started. The easiest first step is to just get something to hold your wires. We'll start with one. We'll go ahead and we'll tin it. So I like to tin by heating up the wire and then feeding solder into it, as opposed to some people like to apply solder to the iron and then place it onto the wire. It's called transfer soldering. I'm not a big fan of that. So we'll do it this way. And there we go, tinned. Next, we're going to go ahead and align the wires so that we can solder them together. This might take a little bit of finesse, but we'll see what we can get going here. By the way, these little helping hand jigs that I'm using are probably like $7 online. Very cheap, but useful if you're just starting out. Normally I wouldn't use one, but when videoing it's a little bit easier. Now that we're all lined up, we're going to get the iron and the solder again. And I'm going to hold the iron so it touches both wires. Oh, we get a little separate here, that's okay. Heat it up. Try to make sure the solder flows all the way in the junction of the two wires. And then release and make sure the wires don't move while the solder is cooling. So now we have two wires soldered together. Let's see how they look. Not bad. Not bad. One thing I did forget to mention is normally you're going to want to slide some shrink tubing over this before you solder, because usually you can't snag the other end to slide shrink tube over. But what you do is either before you strip it or after you strip the wire, you want to slide some shrink tubing over. Keep it away from the heat so that it doesn't shrink on the wire. Make sure it's large enough to fit over these two wires. I've made the mistake a few times where I get one that just fits over the insulation, and when I go to slide it over, I'm like, oh, it's not quite big enough. So just make sure it's big enough, but not too big. And then you're good here. As a small bonus, I've decided to try to break this solder joint just for fun, just in case someone out there doesn't like it. We'll see what we can do with these first, and then we'll move on to some other ways. Definitely beating up the wire, but not breaking the joint apart, that's for sure. Still solid. Let's try something else. So I'm not sure that the prying method was proof enough that this is a decent joint. So I decided to take it to the garage, get it on something solid, and see what a little bit of crushing could do to it. Alright, now we're back. Let's take a look at what the hammer did. It definitely flattened it, but it didn't break the joint, and I don't think I could break it now. It looks like it's one piece. Now maybe I'm wrong about people disagreeing with this method, but there are just so many opinions out there, many of which are very good. that I figured maybe someone would disagree. Anyways, it was still fun to hit it with a hammer a few times. I really like this method mainly because it's fast, it's easy, and it really holds up in my opinion. It's also very easy to slide the insulation over the wire joint. I hope this was useful to you, and I hope you all have some happy soldering. If you have any questions, feel free to comment and I'll try to answer them. Thanks.